There's a number most people spend their whole lives chasing, and a second number they never think about at all. The first one is in your bank account. The second one is how many free hours you have left before you die. And here's the strange part nobody warns you about. As the first number climbs, the second one doesn't. Sometimes it climbs the other way. This is the story of what happens between them. So let's start at the bottom, where most stories start, whether they admit it or not. It's a Sunday, and you're standing in your kitchen at 4 in the afternoon, waiting for a kettle to boil, and you are counting the minutes, not because you're busy, because you're not. The shift starts at 6. $11 an hour starts at 6. And the 90 minutes between now and then belong to no one, pay nothing, and cannot be saved. That's the first thing you learn about time when you have no money. It doesn't feel like a gift, it feels like a gap. Empty stretches you have to get through. Between the stretches someone pays you for. You are 26, and you have already started to think of your own life in two colors: the hours that earn and the hours that don't. And the hours that don't feel less like rest and more like waiting. Here's what nobody tells you about $11 an hour. It isn't really $11 an hour, because the hour doesn't start when you clock in. It starts when you wake up early enough to catch the bus. It includes the 40 minutes standing at the stop. It includes the uniform you wash, the shoes that wear out, the lunch you can't afford to buy so you pack. When you add all of it up, the real number is lower. You are selling more of your life than the wage admits, at a discount you never agreed to. And the cruelest part is, the arithmetic runs in the wrong direction. When you have no money, time is the only thing you own in any quantity, so you spend it like it's worthless, because the market has told you it is. You wait in lines to save $4. You take the long bus to avoid the transfer fee. You drive across town for the cheaper gas. Every one of these is a trade, your hours for someone else's pennies, and you make the trade every single day, because when the account is that thin, an hour genuinely is worth less than the dollar. That's the trap at the bottom. Not that you have no time. You have nothing but time. It's that your time has been priced so low that spending it to save money is the rational thing to do. And so you spend it. And the second number, the one nobody's counting, ticks down while you stand in line to save the $4. Now the first number starts to move. You get the better job. Let's call it $50,000 a year. The first time the money has ever felt like it had a floor under it. And something shifts, quietly, in how the hours feel. This is the level almost nobody describes, because it isn't dramatic. It's just the first time you stop counting the minutes before a shift. At 50,000, you buy your first hour back without noticing you did it. You order the food instead of driving across town for the deal. You pay the small fee instead of taking the long way. You are, for the first time, choosing money over time in the small things, and it feels like relief, because for your whole life it ran the other way. This is the direction everyone is climbing toward. The moment your hour is finally worth more than the $4 you used to cross town to save. But watch what happens to the shape of the week. At the bottom, the empty hours were the enemy. Now the empty hours are the prize, and they've become rare. Because the 50,000 came attached to a schedule, and the schedule fills the good hours, the daylight ones, the ones with energy left in them, and hands you back the tired ones at the end. You have more money and fewer usable hours, and you call this progress, and you are not wrong to. It is progress. It's just not the kind anyone warned you it would be. Here's the quiet thing about this level. You start to feel time speed up. The Sundays that used to crawl now vanish. A month used to be a long time to wait for a check. Now, a month is nothing. A thing that happens to you 4 times before you've noticed the season changed. This isn't your imagination. When every hour is spoken for, the calendar stops being a thing you move through and becomes a thing that moves through you. The money bought you a floor, and the floor came with a current, and the current only runs one direction. There's a stop between here and the next one that deserves its own moment because it's the one where the change is easiest to miss. Somewhere around 80,000, a strange thing happens to your weekends. They stop being recovery and start being maintenance. At 50,000, the weekend was the reward, the thing the week was for. Now, the weekend is when you catch up. You run the errands, you answer the messages you were too tired to answer, you prepare for the week that's coming so it doesn't bury you. 2 free days, and neither of them is free. You've been given more money, and the money quietly repossessed your Saturdays, and it did it so gently, one obligation at a time, that you signed for the loss without ever seeing a contract. This is the level where people first say the sentence that will follow them the rest of the way up. I just don't have the time. They have the same 24 hours the kid at the bus stop has. What they mean is that every one of those hours now has a claim on it. Let the first number climb again. Now you're at 150,000, and this is where the relationship with time gets genuinely strange, because this is where you can start buying other people's hours. Not just conveniences, people. Someone cleans the place. Someone fixes the thing you'd have spent a Saturday fixing. Someone delivers, assembles, handles, so that your hours stay free for the work that pays for all of it. You have discovered the central trick of money, the one the whole climb is secretly about. You can convert cash back into time by paying someone whose time is priced lower than yours, and it works. That's the seductive part. It genuinely works. The Saturday you used to lose to the broken sink is yours again. But notice what you do with the hour you just bought back. You work. Almost every time, at this level, you spend the reclaimed hour feeding the thing that generates the cash that buys the hours. You have built a small machine that turns your time into money and money back into time, running faster and faster, and you are somewhere in the middle of it, and you have stopped asking what the machine is for. There was a specific evening around this level. You'd paid someone to do a thing, so you'd have the night free, and then the night came, and you sat down in the quiet with nothing you were required to do, and you didn't know how to be there. The free hour felt like a language you used to speak and had lost. You checked your phone. You found a reason to open the laptop. You filled the hour you'd purchased because the stillness inside it had started to feel less like rest and more like a bill coming due. That's the thing about buying your time back. Nobody teaches you how to hold it once you have it. Keep climbing. $1 million. And here is where the second number, the one nobody counts, starts sending up its first real signals. If you're the kind of person who notices signals, because at $1 million, you have solved the problem the whole climb was meant to solve. You will not be evicted. You will not go hungry. The fear that started this entire race, the fear that made a 26-year-old count the minutes before an $11 shift, that fear is objectively over. And it does not feel over. That's the discovery at $1 million that nobody sells you. The fear was never really about the money. You just thought it was, because money was the thing you could measure. So you kept feeding the first number, expecting the fear to shrink as it grew. And instead, the fear found new things to attach to, the way water finds the shape of whatever holds it. Now you're afraid of losing it. Now you're afraid of the person at 2 million who is clearly doing something you're not. The number that was supposed to buy peace bought a new and more sophisticated anxiety, and the hours keep vanishing. Faster now because $1 million comes with more to protect and more to manage, and more people who want a piece of the hour you finally learned you could sell for a fortune. 10 million. Now, the buying of time goes industrial. You don't clean, cook, drive, wait, fix, or stand in a single line ever again. Every friction that used to eat an hour has been staffed, outsourced, smoothed. On paper, you have bought back more time than a person at the bottom could dream of. You should, by the logic that started this whole climb, be the richest man alive in the only currency that matters, drowning in reclaimed hours. You are not. And this is the part that would sound like a lie to the version of you standing in that kitchen at 26, because the same money that cleared away the friction also filled the space it cleared, the calls, the decisions, the things only you can sign, the people whose living depends on your attention, so your attention is never fully your own again. You removed all the small thefts of time and replaced them with large ones, and the large ones come wearing the mask of importance. So you don't resent them the way you resented the bus. You volunteer for them. You call it your life's work. And maybe it is. But the ordinary free hour, the Sunday afternoon that once crawled by empty while a kettle boiled, you could not tell me the last time you had one that no one wanted a piece of. There was a morning at this level that stayed with you. You had a stretch of hours with nothing scheduled, a rare accident, a gap someone forgot to fill, and instead of relief, you felt a low hum of unease, and it took you most of the morning to name it. The unease was this: an empty hour to a person at 10 million feels like a machine idling, like something expensive running with no output, and every instinct built over the climb screams to put it to use. You have spent so long making your time valuable that you have lost the ability to let it be valueless. And valueless, if you go all the way back to the kitchen, is exactly what a free hour is. It produces nothing. That's what makes it free. You had trained that capacity out of yourself somewhere around the second million and never noticed it leave. There's a math worth doing out loud here because the channel is built on the math. At the bottom, you sold your hour for $11. At 10 million, your hour, by any reasonable accounting of what you produce, is worth thousands. You have increased the price of your time by a factor that would look insane written down, and yet you have less of it, unspoken for, than the kid at the bus stop. You made your time more valuable than you ever imagined possible, and in the exact same motion, you made it impossible to afford to waste, which is the only thing free time has ever actually been. Time you are rich enough to waste. Now let the first number reach the top of this story: $500 million. This is the number on the thumbnail, the one that made you click. And I'll be honest with you, the way this channel is always honest. It changes less than you think, and what it does change is not what you'd guess. At 500 million, time stops being something you buy and becomes something other people spend on your behalf. You have layers now, people whose entire job is to protect your hours from other people. And the strange result is that you become the most scheduled human being in any room you enter. The man at $11 an hour could, in theory, walk out the door on a Sunday and disappear for the afternoon, and the only cost would be the shift. You cannot. There is no version of your Tuesday that isn't spoken for by October. Your time has become so valuable that it is no longer yours to squander, and squandering, remember, was the whole secret point of having it. But here's the thing: 500 million actually buys the real prize, and it's quieter than the number promises. It buys you the ability to stop selling your hours to people you don't respect for reasons you don't believe in. That's it. That's the freedom, not infinite leisure. The end of the involuntary trade. At the bottom, you sold your hours to whoever paid $11, and you had no say in it. At the top, you finally choose the buyer. You still work. People at this level almost always still work, and harder than you'd think, but the difference is that every hour is now given rather than sold. That is a real thing. I won't pretend it isn't. It's just so much smaller than the number led you to believe, and it arrived so much later than it needed to. Because here is the second number, the one we've been not counting this whole climb, finally stepping into the light. However much time it took you to get from the kitchen to the 500 million, that time is gone. It is the one purchase the 500 million cannot make. It cannot buy back the Sundays you worked through at 50,000. It cannot buy back the free hour at 150,000 that you filled with the laptop because stillness scared you. It cannot buy back the decade the machine ran while you stopped asking what it was for. Every one of those hours was spent at the going rate, and the going rate for the past is that it is not for sale. That's the joke the whole climb plays on you. You spend your cheap hours, the ones at the bottom, buying the ability to afford expensive hours later. And then you arrive and you find out that the expensive hours were never the point, and the cheap ones, the wasted Sunday ones, the empty ones you couldn't wait to get through, those were the free hours. Those were the only hours in your whole life that belonged to no one and cost you nothing and asked nothing of you. You just didn't know it because they were priced at zero, and you had been taught your entire life that zero means worthless. They weren't worthless. They were the only thing on the whole ladder that was actually free. So, let me hand it back to you because this was never really about a man with $500 million. You have a version of this. You are somewhere on this ladder right now, at some number, trading your hours at some rate you may never have said out loud, and you already know, if you're honest, which direction your two numbers are moving. You know whether the money is climbing while the free hours climb too, or whether you've quietly accepted that the free hours are the price of the climb and told yourself you'll buy them back at the top. I'm not going to tell you to stop climbing. That would be a different kind of lie. And the truth is, the money is real. The floor it buys is real. The fear at the bottom is real and worth escaping. Most people are climbing for a good reason, and they should. But somewhere in the climb, there's an hour, an ordinary one, a Sunday afternoon kettle kind of hour that no one is paying you for and no one is asking you to fill. And there is only one question that actually matters, and it isn't how much your time is worth. It's whether you can still afford to waste an hour, and whether you'd even remember how.